Civil rights activist Tolekan Ismailova has heard some harrowing accounts of violence. These people have lost everything. 2 weeks ago, a mob tore through the southern Kyrgyz city of Osh. They mainly attacked Uzbeks. All that remains of many houses here are the foundations. I am accompanying Tolekan. She works for several NGOs and is trying to get a full picture of what happened. Hasil Abidol is an Uzbek who doesn't believe the official version of events. Namely, that the Uzbeks attacked the Kyrgyz, who then retaliated. He tells me it's a lie. Ask any Uzbeks which of them have weapons. None. He says his people don't want any war with the Kyrgyz. What good would that do? The Uzbeks want peace, but it was the Kyrgyz who started it all and are now blaming the Uzbeks, he says. Hasil had invested all his money in his home, for himself, his wife, and 5 children. They used to have a couple of cows and sheep in the yard. He tells me that, like many in this area, he suspects that some elements want to drive the Uzbeks out for good. Tolekan tells me that the full truth of what happened still has to be uncovered. What is clear is that the violence had been premeditated on both sides, and by criminals too. She says that some people were brutally killed, their throats slit. They also came across the charred bodies, and then there are the women and girls who had been raped. In all, hundreds are thought to have been killed, as Uzbeks and Kyrgyz unleashed violence. Anyone who could fled with their families out of the city, just like Hasil. He shows me where he now lives, with friends who were able to bunker down away from the violence. The bloody events dominate conversation at tea time. Everyone agrees that they were the result of direct provocation. Criminal elements exploited the envy of the Kyrgyz for the better-off Uzbeks. I ask Hasil whether it's true that the Kyrgyz resent the Uzbeks for being more well-off. It's true, he tells me. They call us cockroaches, he says. But the Kyrgyz live quite well now. He says they've been building pretty impressive houses. I travel through Osh. I am taken aback by just how the city center looks. Whole neighborhoods devastated. Siagul Tochebekova was at a wedding in the capital when the angry mob tore through Osh. She's now only seeing for the first time what happened to her house. Siagul and her family had moved here just 6 months ago from a rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. But now everything has been destroyed. She tells me that the past 30 years of her family's life are now gone. Documents, clothes, photos. Siagul's sewing machine too, as well as her books. She tells me that all that remains is a dress. Most Kyrgyz in Osh live in Soviet-era housing complexes like this one. Siagul Tochebekova lives here again with her sister. I get the sense that envy lies at the base of the conflict. A conflict over land and property in one of Central Asia's poorest countries. The Kyrgyz feel hard done by. Uzbeks are actually a minority in Kyrgyzstan, but in the area around Osh, they have power. The situation can be seen as a remnant of the Stalin era, when the Kremlin drew arbitrary borders across the region. Siagul tells me that the Uzbeks want autonomy in the area around Osh. It's something they've been hearing for a while, but it's mad, she says. She also tells me that some of their leaders say that Kyrgyz are lazy and should just go off into the mountains. The whole city center now belongs to the Uzbeks, she says. Tolikan tells me that Kyrgyzstan is home to some 80 different ethnic groups, but unfortunately not all of them have equal access to power and resources. She also says that since independence, politics has become the domain of clans and castes, just like it was under the recently toppled president Kurmanbek Bakiev. For me, it's clear that the battle for power and resources has escalated since then. I ask myself whether Kyrgyz and Uzbek can live together in peace. I'm on my way to the countryside, to the village of Kemertu. It's about 5 kilometers from Osh. Here, too, Kyrgyz live side by side with Uzbeks. Erkinbek Suleimanov, with the typical embroidered cap, is Uzbek. He and Yunusali Shermatov, in traditional Kyrgyz felt hat, often work together in the fields. They say it gives them a chance to talk about things. Uzbeks and Kyrgyz are both Turkic peoples that have lived for centuries here in the south of Kyrgyzstan. Why should there be strife now, I wonder? When the locals in Kemertu heard about the unrest in Osh, they set up a civilian militia to protect the village. It included both Kyrgyz and Uzbeks. Erkinbek tells me that the Uzbeks have their customs and the Kyrgyz theirs. They wear different hats, but it isn't important. He explains that they all share the same faith. They're all Muslims. Yunusali says that even if their faces look a bit different, they're of one faith. There's a degree of relaxed normality here, greatly at odds with Osh. A sense of everyday life returns slowly to the city. Security checkpoints thrown up around Uzbek areas are designed to ensure some degree of peace, but they divide the city into Kyrgyz and non-Kyrgyz neighborhoods. Despite the control posts, this week there were shootings and deaths. Tolikan Ismailova talks to the soldiers. She asks them not to be too visible. I admire her stamina and her engagement with all sides. But she tells me that the threat from criminals and extremists is very high. She worries about it. She says everyone has to pull together, Uzbeks and Kyrgyz, even if it's a vague hope. She explains that peace can be achieved if everyone bands together, the women, young people, and even the soldiers. But I have the sense that people in Osh will not regain a sense of peace and security so soon after the bloodletting. I think it's this outlook that unites Kyrgyz and Uzbeks.